Reintegration of formerly incarcerated women in Nigeria. Joke Aladesanmi, the founder and executive director of Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation, joins us after the break, so stay with us. Welcome back to Jasiri. Now today we're delving into an important but often overlooked topic, the rehabilitation and reintegration of convicts in Nigeria. This is an issue that is often swept under the carpet because it simply isn't something many of us think about, but it is as much a part of the circle of our justice system as many other things. Did you know that Nigeria was a signatory to the 1996 Kampala Declaration on Prison Conditions in Africa and the 2002 Ouagadougou Declaration on Accelerating Penal and Prison Reform in Africa? Both of these instruments were meant to improve the conditions of African prisons. But several years down the line, is Nigeria really making any progress? But beyond that, what happens when people leave the prisons? Now joining us is Joke Aladesanmi. She's the founder and executive director of the Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation, CELSIR. From creating Nigeria's first safe house for formerly incarcerated women to spearheading educational programs for incarcerated individuals, Joke is redefining what justice looks like. So let's discuss the challenges and successes of rehabilitation and also learn how we can collectively break the cycle of recidivism. This is a conversation about inspiring hope, second chances, and the transformative power of education and community. Welcome to Jasiri, Joke.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love your smile. Yes, it's the smile I wanted to say.
Honestly, just like Tolu said, this is novel to me. I read about it, I see it abroad. I see maybe because they have a system that works. In Nigeria, we're still struggling with gathering data of all the people that are in the country, not to talk of inmates or people who have been to prison before. I must say, reading all this about you, what your groundbreaking initiative does, you know, I'm still in awe of that, really. And everything that you've done, very inspiring. Right. You've been a criminal defense lawyer for over 10 years now. And I know that there must be a backstory that led you down this path of helping former inmates, particularly women. Right. And a lot of people, in fact, in Nigeria, they don't even understand defense attorney. They don't invest in a lawyer that defends criminals. Right. In Nigeria, we just think it's bad. Oh, yeah, bad lawyer. You always represent people that are... But they forget that everybody is innocent
and entitled to representation.
Guilty, and you are entitled to representation.
Definitely.
So you want to give us a little backstory, how you got to this particular junction.
All right. Thank you so much. So, yes, I've been practicing as a criminal defense attorney for more than 10 years. I would say 12 years now. And my experience actually made, is actually the foundation that gave birth to CELSIR. And so prior to when I started CELSIR, I'll say as far back as 2014, I had the opportunity of working in a non-governmental organization that was providing strictly legal support to incarcerated persons. And by working there, I was representing a lot of accused persons. And when I mean a lot, I mean there are times when I go to court and I'm representing 10 persons every single day of the week, representing accused persons. And that gave me an opportunity. Initially, it was just like a job. It was a job, okay, I go to court, I represent them, and then I come back to the office, and every other day like that. But I was able to build a relationship with most of the stakeholders in the justice system. I mean, with the prisons, with the workers, the warders, the incarcerated persons themselves, the accused persons, with the courts, the judiciary. I was just able to build a very strong relationship. But I noticed something, and that was a big thing then, and it was just basically providing legal support to incarcerated persons, and that's all. So you get people who go to the prison and represent and then count numbers. Oh, this year we brought out over 200 persons, over 500 persons. And then the question kept coming, how come no one is talking about what happens to them while they're in prison and what happens to them when they're out? Yeah. You know, even at that time, when we represent people and we bring them to court, we just give them and we release them. And I mean, when I mean release them, I can tell you that nothing less than 100 persons come out from the prison in even Lagos, because Lagos is one of the populated states, right? Yeah. Nothing less than 100 persons comes out a week. So what I mean is a lot of people are coming back into the system, and nobody is asking the questions as regards what's happening to them while they are in? What's happening while they are out? We just want to keep them locked in. Oh, they've committed a crime, let's keep them locked in. Oh, they've been accused, let's keep them locked in. And I just thought that this can be whole. Providing legal support can be whole. We need to go into what's really happening. What's the rehabilitation like in the correctional facilities? What's the quality of the rehabilitation? And going by statistics, more than 95% of incarcerated persons come back to the society. Yes. So if you do not have a good plan, a good rehabilitation plan, they just go through the system, meet more, more very hardened people. Those who have, maybe they were probably remanded because they committed stealing, will now go out, better connections when they are in there, and then they come out to even tend to be worse because the quality of the rehabilitation is not actually being checked. And then what happens post-incarceration? That's when they come back to society. And all of these concerns actually formed the reason why I started CELSIR, to say we're not just going to stop at legal support, we're also going to be looking at rehabilitation. What happens when they are in and what happens when they are out? And this has actually formed our journey since I founded CELSIR.
Wow. Okay, so before we continue on the rehabilitation and reintegration journey, I want us to talk about the Nigerian Correctional Service itself. Right. Now, there was a name change from the Nigerian Prison Service in August 2019, and this came with the signing of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019. Joke, is there anything really correctional about the service?
I would say that moving away from even starting up with the name, because for me, I always learn to even celebrate little steps. Moving away from prison to correctional, it's a major step. Now, there's a lot of steps that needs to bring us into the aspect of correctional. But before we talk about how they've not been able to achieve 100% what they are supposed to be, let's even look at the population. In a prison, like recently, when I started my prison reform advocacy, when I visit the prisons like the Koyi prison, you're seeing maybe like 1,200 persons. Well, the facility itself has a capacity for 800 persons. Some of the, you go to the medium prison, you're seeing maybe like 1,005, but right now, you're having 3,000 and something in a space of 800. Please, there is no way a correction can happen effectively in that space. Yes. Let's just be fair. Let's just say
I have been to the prison, and the things I saw there were alarming. I've done a lot of prison evangelism. I go there with my NGO myself. And inside the prison, I saw somebody selling noodles, an inmate.
So let's quickly even look at this. This is from the Nigerian Correctional Service. Our total inmate population is just over 81,000, but the population, our prisons, I think, are made to just hold about 50-something thousand thereabouts.
Yes, the capacity is 50,000 thereabouts.
So we've already exceeded in terms of capacity. What even interests me always when you have these conversations is the number of people awaiting trial. Yes. But that's not the conversation for today, but it is a conversation. Nigeria has the highest number of people awaiting trial on the African continent. More people are awaiting trial than the people who've actually been convicted. Yeah. But Joke, let's go back to that question that Blessings asked about. Is there really anything correctional? You can change the name. They'll tell you that a rose by any other name will still smell as sweet. Shakespeare. But you can change the name if you're not changing the actual structure. If things are not actually becoming corrective, what then is a name change?
Well, this is what I'm going to say with regards to whether they've been able to meet up with that name. I would say they are still very far away from it. Yeah. But some significant step has been taken, actually. But they are still very far away from it. And when I mean step has been taken, I mean at least they now allow even those of us who have the dreams to provide the rehabilitation, the assistance, they give you the free hand for you to do that.
Oh, so before they were not?
Yeah. Well, now they are much more open, right? Yeah. And in terms of education, a lot of people do not know that they actually have education in prison. They do have education. But let's look at the quality, because it's the quality that gives birth to the correction. It's not about saying, oh, there's education in prison. But what's the education like? Do you understand what I'm saying? What's the education like? How is it being provided? Like before we started our educational program in prison, what was obtainable was you have the incarcerated persons teaching themselves. And I couldn't really make a sense out of it, because what that means is someone who is facing a murder charge is teaching further maths. It can't add up because your mind is already disoriented. Yeah. Somebody who is teaching biology, not because they know it, but because, oh, I think I had a C in biology when I did YF. Yeah. Let me be teaching them. You know, and this is different from what is obtainable in other countries. Even look at Kenya. Let's look at South Africa. Like in South Africa, if you are remanded in any of their facilities, you're entitled to education up to similar to SS3. But here it's not mandatory. So if you are there, it's a must. Because they are seeing it as an opportunity to address the level of illiteracy in the country. Yeah. Now, going by statistics, a large percentage of those who are in prison are actually uneducated people, uneducated, from poor backgrounds, and you know they are majorly
all just stacked against them.
Yes. So using that avenue to reach out to those persons, which on a normal day you would not even have been able to reach out to them because they're everywhere. But now they're in one space. So the quality of the interventions provided for them has been one of the things that keeps holding them back from actually being correctional. Have they taken steps? Yes. But is there more they can do? A whole lot that can still be done. We need to look at the quality. Now, and I want to take us back to even the juvenile prisons.
Yes.
Recently, we launched our educational program at the juvenile prisons, and we were very shocked to know that those in the juvenile centers, which are people who are between the age of 8 and 18 to 20.
There's an 8-year-old in the juvenile. There's a 9-year-old in the juvenile center.
Yes, there's a juvenile prison. A lot of people would not even know that it can even be at your backyard. There's a Keja here, you know. And then we're surprised to know that they only have access to premise 6. So what that means is that once a child is 18 years old, or maybe a child is 17 years old and gets in conflict with the law, and you're remanded at the juvenile center, you only have access to premise 6. Now, let me tell you the problem that is associated with that. The problem with that is once that child is being taken out of the education system and it stays there for a number of time, when it comes back, you've already impacted him in such negative ways that he can't even meet up with his colleagues. So you come out, those who were your mates when you got into the system are already graduates of the university, but you only have GSS2. So what that means is the dream of that child, you only have premise 6, looking at what they already have. So what happens is the dream of that child to ever be anything. Now, the child rights law of Lagos State and even the Act says that every Nigerian child should have access up to GSS3. But the correctional facilities
is up to primary 6.
You know, we're grateful for the support we got in terms of starting our program, because for me, that's where the step starts from. But there's still a lot that
to be done.
That needs to be done.
Okay, so let's expand. Let's widen the net a little bit. I've heard correctional. Whether they change the name or not, I believe that they've not. You know, but I understand where you're coming from, because you are there. You see. And so you say, let's celebrate the little steps, which is commendable. I feel personally, where there's still so much that we are lagging behind on.
A lot.
So my own question would be that even the country, let's spread it out and engage, let's include the criminal justice, the whole entire criminal justice system. Are we set up to really rehabilitate these people who are in prison? That's number one. And number two, community, when you say community, you know how you go abroad and then there's community service. Oh, we're sending you to community service. Are we equipped for community service in this country? And do we even do community service? Is that an option? I'm looking at options on the table now.
Does everybody have to go to prison?
Does everybody? Have you seen the numbers awaiting trial?
Yes, that is the question. And so that's the question that a lot of advocates keep asking. Do they really have to go? Like in some of our visits to the correctional center, and I'm going to take an example from one of the women in our house, when she was telling us what took her to the prison. She was actually working with a woman that sells, I think, attachments and wigs and all those things. And then she was working with the woman, and then the woman said, so somebody requested to buy wig. So she wore the wig and snapped it and sent it to the person. So the woman got to see the picture, and then she was so angry. Meanwhile, she was only earning 25,000. And this is not me trying to make an excuse for whatever thing that she must have done, but I'm just trying to paint a picture that leads us to the question you just asked, right? So she snapped. So the madam or the boss saw the picture, and she was very angry and said, no, you wore my wig, you're going to pay for it, so I'm going to be deducting 8,000 naira from your salary. Meanwhile, she already deducts 1.5 as tax. I still don't know how she calculated.
Who was she paying the tax to?
I don't know. I didn't even know how she calculated the tax to be withdrawing 1.5. So she was collecting 1.5 from her tax. She was repaying back 8,000 naira. So what was left? So she has to take transport and all of all those things. So when the incident happened, our mates, of course, our colleagues were telling her, you know, or Denier, you should be able to do this one. If it's me, I'll take a wig. If it's me, I'll take a stretcher and all of that. So it got one day she had to. Meanwhile, she had 2 kids. that she was also taking care of. So she said out of the money that was left, she was sending some of those money to her child, you know. And then she said, and she really admitted what she did. And so when she's telling you, she feels terribly bad. So I'm not trying to make an excuse. So she took the wigs and some of those things, and then she ran away. And the woman arrested, along the line, they got her arrested, and they got her to repay some of those things. But the woman said, I'm going to deal with you. You must still go to the prison. And she ended up in prison. Meanwhile, when she got into the prison, I think she was like some weeks pregnant. So she was in prison, you know, with pregnant. Right, by the time they released her, it was almost her due date. Now the question is, for offenses like that, does she really? How much is in question? Does she really? You can tell her to go sweep Yaba markets, and it will still, because the shame is there. Now she's even walking. Now, like, she will still feel the same pain of whatever thing you want her to face. Does she really have to? The sad part of it is, while she was away, her 2 children dropped out from school. So they couldn't go to school. Nobody to take care of them. Our 2 children dropped out from school. Nobody was caring for them. They were practically sleeping around houses. You know, because of course nobody to really care for them. The child had to, when she came out, she gave birth. I think 2 months when she got into our house, and then we had to reach out to, we got to know that our daughter nobody's caring for the child, and it was a concern for her. So we had to bring the daughter to the house and say, let's enroll her back. Now, the problem to the woman or to the boss, she has only punished her, right? By sending her to prison. But that single act has not only impacted her, but has also impacted our children. The truth remains that if we had not taken any step, that child would have dropped, because one thing incarceration does is it destabilizes anybody that comes in, even if you spend 1 week. Because the things you see, you can't unsee them. The trauma it causes, you can't. So let's not talk of somebody who has spent 2 years, 5 years. And that's the problem with our waiting trial. We personally have some of my colleagues who worked with me, because we have some formerly incarcerated persons on our team as well, who work with us that were in prison for 8 years.
Awaiting trial, not on conviction.
He was actually even discharged and acquitted.
And what I always say about some of these, if you look at the people who are awaiting trial, if they eventually got convicted, some of the sentences for the crimes they would have gotten are even less than the amount of time they have spent awaiting trial. Joke, let's go on a quick break. We have a lot more to talk about in regards to this, because we also want to look at the work you do with formerly incarcerated women and the challenges of reintegration and rehabilitation in Nigeria. Jasiri will continue after this.
All right, this is Jasiri. In case you're just joining us, you've missed a little, but not everything. I still can't wrap my head around somebody spending 8 years awaiting trial. Our conversation, you can follow our conversation via our social media platforms. We are at News Central TV. The conversation today is looking at the rehabilitation and reintegration of formerly incarcerated women. And our guest is Joke Aladesanmi. She's the founder and executive director of the Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation, CELSIR. Joke, thank you so much for still being here.
Thank you.
This is a conversation that is not often talked about, but needs to be spotlighted more often. So I'm glad that you're here and we're having this conversation.
So let's talk about recidivism. That word gave me some issues. Thank God it was me. So this is when a person relapses or returns to criminal behavior, and often after the person has received sanction or undergone interventions for a previous crime. It also includes rearrest, resistance to rehabilitation, reconviction, reoffending, readmission, reincarceration, and repetitive criminal tendency, among others. Now, rates for recidivism in Nigeria are high, the highest on the continent, estimated at over 50%. The issue is also compounded by severe prison overcrowding, with the country's inmate population of over 81,000, significantly exceeding the design capacity of 50,083. Now, Joke, I want to know, what are some of the issues that lead people back to crime? Because part of the rehabilitation and reintegration is ensuring that people don't come back. We don't want a pipeline. We don't want a cycle. When I was reading about this, I read about a young man who, the first time he had been arrested for trying to to take drugs, I think, to Singapore. By the time they were writing the story about him in early January, he had been in jail 4 times, and the crimes just kept getting worse. So what is it really, particularly in the Nigerian context, that keeps people going back into prison, particularly women, since you work very closely with formerly incarcerated female inmates?
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I said something earlier. That's the criminal justice system. It's a complete circle.
Yes.
That starts from the point of arrest down to reintegration. That's arrest, remand, rehabilitation, reintegration. It's a circle. Once you have any part of that circle broken, you would definitely have a high rate of recidivism. You can't help it. Now, somebody who is in conflict with the law and has been remanded, you know, let me make it easier. Let's say, for instance, before the person got into the facility, the person is maybe a fashion designer, or let's make it easier, tailoring, right? Because we're talking about people who are economically disadvantaged, so let's use the word tailoring. And so they learn tailoring, and they're so good. And then something happened, and it took them to the prison. I hope you know that if they come back 2 years' time, a lot has changed in terms of even fashion.
Yeah.
So they are automatically disorganized. They don't even know where to start from. The system itself, the rehabilitation, which took us back to the conversation I had earlier, what's the quality of the rehabilitation? The truth remains that somebody who is even selling pepper, who had 100,000 to sell pepper, and the person gets remanded for 1 month, I hope you know when it comes back, he doesn't have that 100,000 again. So he's left to surviving anyhow he's going to survive. And the time spent in a correctional facility, the rehabilitation is not quality enough. So automatically you find this same person, now you're out, you can't go back to the same resources
You're more susceptible to a life of crime.
And survival has to happen. Like I say, this is not me justifying, but it's the truth. Let's call it
the circle has changed.
The circle has changed, everything has changed. And so when you have a system that doesn't pay attention to rehabilitation, that doesn't pay attention to reintegration, you know, you have women, let's even talk about women. You have women coming out of the system as vulnerable as women are. One of our women was telling us one day that, do you know that when I was in prison and people are praying for freedom, I don't pray? And I'm like, all my life I've been thinking they actually do pray for freedom. She was like, I don't pray. Is it because if I come out, where will I go to? Where am I going to go to? I don't have anywhere to go to. So I would rather, at least here, I know that the gates are locked. Nothing is going to happen to me.
There's
and
food
that's
in
just,
the morning
there's food, well, no matter how interesting it is, right? But the truth remains that there's something for them, right? Now, when this person comes out and indeed does not really have a place to go, what happens to them? Some are sleeping in shops. Some are sleeping in schools. We have some of our beneficiaries that said that was in school for like 4 months before he eventually even got a place. Some get raped in the process. Some become, victims of femicide, and all these things keeps happening. So when there is a broken part of the circle that has to talk about the rehabilitation, the reintegration, recidivism is definitely going to be low. Now, I want to say something that will interest you. Some weeks ago, I was talking to some of our partners that work in the service, and I'm like, I wanted to get the exact percentage of recidivism now in Nigeria. And I was like, okay, they're working on it now to know what it is exactly. He said, but you know what, Joke, you'll be shocked that it won't be that high. And I'm like, possible. When I see people that, they will tell you that they've gone.
Where's the data? How they gathering it?
Yeah, he said, because, let me tell you, and very reasonable excuse. He said, because recidivism is based on reoffending after conviction.
Yeah.
And we have a high percentage of awaiting trial that has not been convicted. So recidivism, but then you're looking at recidivism, you're looking at people who have been convicted. How many persons
convicted and have come out and have reoffended?
Exactly.
But people are not even able to finish.
Exactly.
Wow.
So a lot of times you see people who are in prison or accused for a crime for they've been going to court in and out, no witness for like 4 years, and then the court eventually strikes out the matter. That person does not fall under the category of convict. He's awaiting trial. So it goes out the same frustration that he would have experienced if he was convicted. He has experienced everything.
It actually leads them to a higher possibility of now committing a crime that they might be convicted
and
for.
Then they now come back. So because the system itself is a whole
So that means, let's be honest, if NCS comes out with data on recidivism, we need to question the data because we have a peculiar situation with awaiting trial. They need to categorize those who might have been awaiting trial, who were eventually dismissed, but then found themselves in criminal activity, again, without justification or excuse, because of some of the issues that they have faced.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm interested now in the challenges that you face. Let's look at reintegration and rehabilitation in Nigeria. Let's look at the challenges, because I wouldn't lie, when Lolo started talking to you, she said, she's still in awe of the services that you provide. So my question would be that what would be the main challenges? Would they be systemic? Would they be different for men? Would they be different for women? How do you categorize them? And most importantly, what are some of the biggest challenges the formerly incarcerated women face when they come back into wanting to reintegrate into society? Apart from, of course, perceived, what was that? You know how
stigma?
That's the stigma and the judging. You know, yeah, we look, we hear, we don't judge, but it's written sometimes all of our faces. And before we so apart from that, that's a steady. It's guaranteed, it's certain. But are there other challenges that are daunting that they face? I know I've asked a lot of questions in one.
Yes.
I'm asking, is it systemic? Let's look at the type of what are the problems that we face: rehabilitation, reintegration, and then let's look at, are they different for men? Are they different for women? And then the biggest challenges that women face when they are coming back into society.
I would say that when it comes to rehabilitation, so my organization is actually very big on in-prison support. Okay. Our work, we start from, like I said earlier, we start from while they are inside. So every support we need to provide with education. So we teach them every year, prepare them for exam, for general certificate examination, prepare them to get enrolled at National Open University and all of all those things. But because we work in prison, we are still subject to the arrangement of the prison. What that simply means is that no matter how passionate our teachers are to teach, if the prison is saying, oh, nobody, they're not opened out today, there's nothing we can do. You know, or if they say, oh no, there's some sort of visits happening, you can't come in, there's really still nothing we can do. And of course, I think the part that however shocked me was even them opening up to introduction of technology, because the way we teach our students, we actually leverage on technology to teach them, and we have to connect to the internet and all of it. Initially, I was like, oh my God, I hope there won't be pushbacks, and we got questions here and there, hope they won't have access to this, hope they won't have access to that, but we were able to get our way. But we still have those pushback once in a while for us to be able to do it the way we would have loved to do it. So because it's in prison, of course, systemic challenges are there. You're subject to their closeout time. Like now, our classes starts by 10 o'clock. It ends by 2 o'clock. It can't be more than 2 o'clock. As a matter of fact, last week we had an event at the female prison, and they had said they have to be locked up now. They need to take, they have to know numbers. They need to, so we are bound by all of those things that happens. Now, talking about challenges post-incarceration.
Particularly for women.
Yeah, particularly for women. I would say the first thing is actually accommodation. And that's because a lot of women do not know, some of them, in short, a large percentage of women in the Kirikiri prison here, female prison here, are housemaids. Still gold, still ring, still this, still that. You know, they come from, if you're very familiar with the housemaid drama in Nigeria, you know, they're always coming from maybe the Jaws, coming from the Benue, coming from all of those places, right? And then they come into Lagos.
They have nobody.
They have nobody. They have nobody to go. You hear people saying that, I have to call an agent. I know I'm going to come out very soon. So there's one of the women that that is one of us, and she said, she was going to finish her terms of imprisonment in 3 months. So she was already preparing, I'm going to come out in 3 months. Let me call one of the agents that looks for maid, so that at least he can get a place for me so I can work once I come out from the system, right? And then all of a sudden they just came and said, amnesty has released you. Come out. And
she just dropped outside with no plans, nothing.
Because the plan you had was for 3 months' time, but here you are, you know, before the 3 months, out in the system, not knowing where to go. So the accommodation issue is huge, and it's because you just feel that because they've committed, they've broken the law, they've committed crime, nobody really cares about them. But
that whatever they think they should take.
Yes, but there's a reason why developed countries pay attention to things like this, because what's the end goal? The end goal is public safety.
Yes.
It's not about the person, it's public safety. When the person when they do not have the required support when they are housed, you can't say who the next victim is going to be.
You know, there's so many questions that you are raising, and I'm hoping that the government of the now see the importance of the work that you're doing and give you adequate support to be able to achieve more. You know, I want to even ask you, like, since you launched the Center for Legal Support and Inmate Rehabilitation, and I know you have successfully rehabilitated about 6 women. And what was that like? What were the challenges that you encountered? Because 6 might look like a little number, but I know that is a lot.
It's a lot.
to be able to work, because those are things that you're going to use to form the precedent for other ones to come.
Yes.
So take us through how that...
We have, I think, 3 minutes, Joke.
Yes.
Time has gone.
And this conversation is not yet done at all.
Okay, I'll just try and rush through it. Our house was launched last year, November, so it was just 1 year. Somebody was asking us this, and I'm like, this year was just a year of us learning. Because a lot of times you think that this is the problem, and then you get into it, and then you see that it's actually lots deeper than that. We thought it was just going to be accommodation and then providing that support, but then we now saw that beyond accommodation, the statistics even shows that women have more mental health issues after going to the prison than men. Because while you're there, you're thinking of your child. You're thinking of, I hope they are fine. I hope they are going to school. So when
your
they come
elderly
out,
parents.
yeah,
Your
your
so
elderly
many
parents.
things.
There are all sort of things. And let me also add that out of 3 women, 2 of them are actually from problematic marital issues. They already have marital issues. Maybe single mothers, maybe broken homes, maybe all these things. So they have all those things wrapped up in them, going through the system. When they come out, number one, they don't have accommodation. That's destabilizing enough. So when they come into our house, what we do for them is we give them time to give them like a week to say, you know what, just rest, eat, sleep, and just rest. But while you're doing that, think about what your next goal is. What do you want to do? Now, some of them will come and say, okay, I want to learn this one. There was one of them that really, really blew me away. She came into Lagos when she was 12 years old as a maid, and then she's been in the system. Now she's like 23 years old. She's been in the system of being... So these issues are not just starting with the crime. It started long because the system, the system of the entire country is so broken. She started as a maid by 12, and you know, she has been in that system now that she's even an adult. But she blew my mind, because when I had a meeting with her and I asked her, so what's your plan? She told me, I really want to learn makeup, and then I want to learn photography so that I can know how to edit. I was blown. Because for me, that is somebody who, you know, she had put her mind into thinking about it. So providing psychosocial support, counseling, small loans for them to be able to start their business or buy equipment that they need for them has been some of the things we've been doing to provide support.
Wow.
This conversation is not near done.
It's not. Joke, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for the work that you do, because we realize that rehabilitation is not just about building lives, rebuilding lives, that is, but it's also about rebuilding society. And the work that Joke does reminds us that true justice goes beyond punishment to include compassion, empowerment, and second chances, which I think everybody, to a large extent, maybe not everybody, but to a large extent, we all deserve. Thank you so much, Joke Aladesanmi, for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, on that note, we are heading out of the studio. It is, of course, just a few minutes to 11. Business Edge is coming your way right here on News Central. We'll have more for you, 10 a.m. West African time tomorrow. Make it a date with us and the ladies of Just Siri. You have a good one. Bye for now.
Bye.